But now we move to the team that they were that the Raiders were playing for the playoff spot in Week 18, and all they had to do was knee it out if they both wanted to get in, but it didn't happen. Now would be the LA Chargers. They finished 9-8, and like I mentioned, just missed out on the playoffs last year. Uh, let me start with who they lost. Lost a few veteran pieces: defensive tackle Brian Balaga, tight end Jared Cook, cornerback Chris Harris Jr., defensive tackle Linval Joseph, and edge rusher Uchenna Nwosu. But they brought in some heavy hitters. Brought in Khalil Mack, which is I think was one of the more surprising trades. Brought in a couple of defensive linemen and Morgan Fox and Sebastian Joseph Day. Also brought in Troy Reeder. The previous two guys I just mentioned have history with Brandon Staley and with their time in LA Rams. Also brought in linebacker Kyle Van Noy and brought in cornerback Bryce Callahan, and their prized free agent possession that they also brought in was cornerback J.C. Jackson. And then on offense, they also added tight end Gerald Everett, and they drafted guard Zion Johnson in the first round, who, according to camp reports, is already doing really well. So, John, LA Chargers made a bunch of splash moves also. Probably, I would say, bigger splash moves than the Raiders. What do you think is going to be their outcome this season?
Well, I don't mean to overreact, but I think the Chargers are going to win this division. I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't know if you'll agree with me. We'll see. But I really loved what I saw out of them last year. And I know that a lot of people are sort of crucifying me already for how high I have Justin Herbert in my quarterback rankings. Spoiler alert, he's number 4 on my QB rankings. But what I saw out of him last year was incredible. The games I got to watch, there was just so many times where he was just hard carrying. And there's not a lot of quarterbacks in this league that I've seen do that. So I think the offense, they only got better with, keeping Mike Williams. I thought that was huge, kind of an underrated move. You allow him to continue to be that deep threat, and he had a really great season for you last year. And so I believe it's Mike Lombardi is their offensive coordinator, formerly from the Saints. He had, a really great scheme to make sure that Mike Williams' talent was actually finally utilized, and it really worked out there. And then obviously they add Zion Johnson on the offensive line. I love that. Offensively, the only thing I worry about is Storm Norton at right tackle. Um, there was a couple games last year where he just simply got overpowered. I think back to even, and I know it was early in the year, but this is the one game that I paid the most attention to him to was week 2 against the Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons had like 8 pressures against him, and Micah Parsons was a rookie, so and it was his first game as a pass rusher since he was in like high school. So and that's not to say that Storm Norton doesn't get a pass or anything, because he was thrust in there due to injury. It was his first game starting, I believe, but regardless, I do worry a little bit about him. So I think that he is going to be a key player to watch to see if there was some improvement in this offseason when it comes to his pass protection specifically. So that's pretty important. Defense, I love what they did defensively. I don't think a lot of people realize how bad the Chargers actually were on defense last year. In quite a few metrics, they were incredibly bad, including run defense. They were the 32nd ranked team in terms of rush defense last year. Some of that is by design because Staley, he has this sort of revolutionary defensive tactic where he will allow you to run the ball in hopes that he can limit your passing opportunities. But also, a lot of that was just they're simply bad at it. And we could see that in that final game that everybody had their eyes glued to against the Raiders, where a lot of people thought that they could go, get this tie and they both make the playoffs. And the Chargers' inability to stop Josh Jacobs in the run when it was very clearly going to be a run play, that's what caused them to miss out on the playoffs. So I love the fact that they added Khalil Mack. He is one of the highest graded run defenders in the entire NFL the last 5 years, even last year. So although his pass rush ability has sort of declined a little bit steadily over the years, his run stuffing ability has still been through the roof. He's one of the best run defenders. So I think that adding him is going to be huge because he can set that physical presence on the other edge across from Joey Bosa and make a really big impact in the run game. You also add JC Jackson, and I think that inadvertently helps the run game because he's someone you can rely on that might not need safety help. And so that allows you to bring a Derwin James down into the box and not have to run your 2 deep safety set so much because you can trust that JC Jackson can hold his own against a lot of receivers. And then I think two, like you already mentioned them, but two really underrated additions, Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day. Like you said, they have history with Staley, but I think that those are two guys. Sorry, not Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph Day and Morgan Fox. Those are two guys who have history with Staley, and they can be just big bodies that can plug the middle. That was something that they were lacking last year. Besides Jerry Tillery, they didn't have a lot of size in the middle. You get that now with Sebastian Joseph Day and Morgan Fox, two guys who just, once again, provide depth to the defensive line and allow you to stop the run. The interesting thing that I'm going to be paying attention to is going to be their linebackers. They have Kenneth Murray, and after that, not a lot of great options. There's already been some rumors that they might trade for Roquan Smith from the Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll start. Obviously, you have to love their offseason, what they did. I will say so I'm not sure if I'm going to pick them to win the division. I still have one concern on offense, which is they don't really have someone that scares you with their deep speed. Maybe that could be Joshua Palmer, I know, or Jalen Guyton. They've had some moments. So, I mean, we'll see if maybe they can take that next step. Because, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, they're more bigger, physical, route running type of guys. But nonetheless, I mean, they still almost made it to the playoffs last year. And then, in regards to the defense, like you mentioned, the biggest thing is that run defense. Linval Joseph and Jerry Tiller, I thought they would suffice last year. Jerry Tiller's kind of disappointed since being picked in the first round. Maybe he'll bounce back. We'll see. But, you mentioned the two guys with familiarity with Staley's system. I assume that would help, although Sebastian Joseph Day is kind of on the lighter side of defensive tackles, but maybe that's why they grabbed Morgan Fox. Who's, I think, if I remember correctly, around 300, about the average size of a defensive tackle. So, man, I'm interested to see what they do with J.C. Jackson because they have Asante Samuel Jr., who had a solid year last year, and obviously Derwin James now fully healthy. And I've had a year to get back to full playing speed and. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough when I have to do season predictions, but I expect this Charger team, even if a few pieces get injured and, if they have concerns at right tackle, like you mentioned, I expect them to figure it out. They have enough talent all around, and I think Brandon Staley's a smart enough coach on both ends of the ball, him and his staff, where I expect this team to be a playoff team. And as of right now, I have no clue where to set my expectations to. We'll find out my season predictions, but I'm right with you. This team is already, I think, like you mentioned, it's be them and the Chiefs at the top of the AFC West. It's just we'll see we'll have to wait and see how the season plays out and how the pieces fall. But Chargers pushing like most of the rest of this division, pushing their chips in the middle of the table and going all